Hey everybody, it's Brad Bordessa from Ukulele.com, and I'm going to give you kind of a demo run through of the different kinds of effects you can put on the ukulele signal, kind of around my Boss ME50 multiple effects pedal. So this first video I'm just going to start off with the really super simple stuff, and that includes just reverb, a noise suppressor, compressor, and then kind of what you can do with EQ. So to start off, reverb might be your most common normal effect, but it just kind of gives you the sound of being in, say, a school gym or something, and when you bounce the basketball you hear the echoes coming back off the wall. There are a couple different kinds. The room reverb is a little bit smaller reverb. It sounds like you're in a smaller room. And I'm just running from the ME50 right into my Roland AC-90. And then a hall reverb is a little bit bigger sounding. Sounds like you're in a bigger room or a church or something. And of course you can make it more subtle so it's not quite as pronounced. And then a spring reverb is what is in all of the old guitar amps, and the model on this sounds kind of junk to my ears, so I never use it. But just to give you an idea, it's like when you actually have a real spring inside the amp, it's what it's trying to emulate, and if you bang on the amp the spring will make noise, and that's kind of what they use for all the old surf songs and stuff. So you can hear it trying to bounce around the fake spring, but it's a little obnoxious. I've got a friend who's got an amp with the same kind of reverb, and it doesn't sound anything like that. And then there's a modulated reverb, which puts kind of a chorusing effect on the reverb. This is by far the most pronounced reverb that this unit has. So you can kind of hear in the background it's fading in and out. Just kind of detuning the reverb signal just a tad, but crank that all the way up and you can go really crazy. So usually most recordings have reverb on them, at least a little bit, especially vocal kinds of things. It just adds, even if you can't tell there's actually reverb there, it adds a little bit of body to the signal, so it's not quite as plain. And then over here there's a noise suppressor, which you won't be able to hear very well because I have migrated from the passive soundboard transducer pickup to a MISI under saddle one. But with the old pickup, you could hear kind of arm noise whenever I moved my arm when I was playing, and if you cranked up the noise suppressor you could hear it kicking in. And what it basically does is when you're not playing, the threshold is what this knob controls, and that's how loud something needs to be before it passes through the noise gate and is actually heard. So if you set it kind of high, it will pull out some small arm noises that you might be making, but it's not so much an issue anymore. But if you do put it on, it kind of will get rid of extra buzz and stuff. And then there's the compressor, which isn't super practical just because there's not a lot of need for it, but if you're doing really crazy effects like a flanger or something, you might want to run it through the compressor first so that you don't get any spikes. What a compressor does is it kind of levels out the signal and it boosts the low signals a little bit, and it also takes the really loud signals and it kind of tames them down. So if you have it on really hard, you can pick a note and it'll almost sound like you have more sustain. That's why they call it a compressor sustainer sometimes, is because it's totally cutting off your loud signal, but then as the decay of the note goes away, or as the note decays, then the compressor will let more and more signal through, so it sounds like the note's going longer and more full than it actually was. So with this one, I usually have it on just kind of low, just in case something goes crazy and I get a really loud note. It'll just kind of stop it. And the level control, the sustain knob kind of controls how much it squishes down the signal, and the level is just the gain. And you want to try and get it as close as you can, unless you're going for a boost effect, but you can't really do that on this because there's no separate pedal for it. But you try and set the level about the same as when it's off. So it just kind of rounds out the signal. It can be kind of nice for some finger picking stuff. But if you turn it up, you want to turn the level down a little bit. So if you really jam, when it's all the way up, if you really jam on a chord, well, you're probably hearing my acoustic ukulele louder than the actual affected signal, but it just really puts the squeeze on it, and then as you go, it lets more through. So I'll turn that off. And then over here is kind of your different EQ options that you can have. Right now I've got it off because I like the sound of my ukulele just as it is, but there's some other stuff. You can have a fat setting where the mid-range is boosted, presence is a little thinner, and mild takes the top off. Last one there is trying to simulate an acoustic. So if you had an electric guitar, instead of sounding like that, it would probably sound more like, because with an already acoustic instrument it sounds really bad, but with an electric guitar supposedly it'll make it sound like an acoustic. So those are just kind of sonic options you have there. But besides those basic effects, there is also a volume pedal, which does pretty much just that. It controls the volume. So you can fade in notes, or if you realize you're too loud for the occasion, you can back off and just use that as your volume control, and then when you need solo or whatever, you can put it down. So that about wraps it up for the basic effects. I'll be moving on to the other actual effects sections in the next couple videos.